Okay, we're going to get started building our game. We'll be using the Flappy Bird style to build an infinite scroller game. The first thing you're going to do after you've downloaded Unity is to locate your icon, and I recommend that you select to make this permanently in your dock so you can find it, but wherever you've saved it, open Unity. After you've opened Unity and you've logged in and made your free student account, you'll have the option to create a new file. We're going to make that new file now. This Unity project, name it what you will. I'm going to call it Flappy Demo. You might like to name this with your last name, that would be logical. So this can be Flappy Demo, Flappy Demo Macaulay. And we're going to change the template, this is very important, to 2D. So the template is automatically in 3D when you open this new file. You must swap to 2D. We're working with two-dimensional graphics. You can also choose the location to save it to by clicking these three buttons here, and that will let you go through and locate a folder to save it to. I'm happy with mine arriving on my desktop for now. Let's create that project. Let it load. Great, so Unity's opened up as a large window. You can see that there's a lot of screen real estate here. First thing we're going to do is change it from Services to Inspector, which is the tab that we will be working in predominantly. Down the bottom here, we have the Project folder. Let's go to the Project folder. And we have an Assets folder. Assets lives down here, and you can see that so far all we've got is this little folder called Scenes, with a sample scene in it. So we're going to stay in the Assets folder, and now we're going to add the Flappy Bird assets that we downloaded before we started this project. So make sure you have these downloaded, and to add them, you can simply click and drag and drop it into the Assets area right next to Scenes. Then I'm going to take my sprites, click and drag and drop. And that's simply, we've uploaded our sprite and font components to the game. So next up, we've got our blank game screen here. That's our scene, our working scene. The game is just a blank blue because nothing has been done. So in our scene, we're going to go Sprites. Open up your Sprites folder. You'll notice that at the side it shows you which folder you're in and makes this all very clear. We have our Bird Hero sprite, and it actually features 3 of the sprites that you'll be using. So in the one file we have 3. What we're going to need to do is go up into Inspector, and in sprite mode it will say there is a single sprite. We actually have multiple. So we're going to set this to multiple, and now we're going to edit the sprites, and what we'll be doing is cutting them out so that instead of 1 we have 3 to work with. So click Sprite Editor, Apply, and you'll get the Sprite Editor window. You can make it a bit bigger if you like, with our little birdie sitting there. We're going to slice, click Slice. Using an automatic slice, this will locate the boundaries of your sprites. So when we click it, there we go. It's very hard to see, but a little box has appeared showing the boundary of each sprite. So we've clicked Slice. You can click it again if you're worried, but it has applied. So now we just need to say, yes, apply that. Good. Now you can see the little boxes there indicating the boundary of each sprite. That will save automatically if you click the cross. So we're just going to close the sprite editor. Good work. First action in Unity completed. You've split out the sprites, we've made multiple, and we've made sure that we have 3 separate icons. So what we'll do now is take it to the hierarchy. The hierarchy is where you place all of your components during this game build. We're going to take the sprites, click and drag. There's a lot of click and drag in this. And you'll notice that our Bird Hero appears in the game scene. While it appears in the game scene, we also get some Inspector components on the Bird Hero. So over here in Inspector, we can change its name. We'll call it Bird. Let's make this a bit neater. So we're renaming it to Bird. And in Sample Scene Hierarchy, its name changes. So the Inspector controls the hierarchy. So we've added our bird in. We're going to let him sit bang on in the middle of this scene, right on the central camera. And in game, you'll see him sitting there happily. Next, we're going to add the grass. So down to grass sprites, and you've got it. We click, we drag, we drop. The grass appears. We're going to go to inspector and rename this ground because we want it to be the ground. However, ground in the middle of the screen would not make any sense, so we're going to change the position. So in transform, we'll transform the position and we're going to move it on the y-axis. There's two ways to do this. You can either hold over the y, click and drag, and you'll notice that it moves that way, and you can drag it till it hits the bottom of this little rectangle. Or you'll notice that it sits at around 2.5. You can simply click in and type in minus 2.5 on the y-axis, and that will manually click and remove or shift around the ground. So it's sitting where we want it to now. Lovely. Next we're going to take the sky, but we're actually going to do something different here. We're going to make sure that the sky, when we click and drag it, moves with the ground always. So we're going to make it a child of the ground. To make it a child of the ground, you hold it over that section of the hierarchy. So you see here we'll just drop it in. Hold it over ground and it turns blue. You drop it there, and now sky has become a child of ground. And we will rename it sky. Now we've got our bird, our ground, and our sky, but you'll notice that the sky may have covered everything, and now we can't see our bird. So in the game we just have our beautiful sky. This is because of the sorting layers. When you drop items into hierarchy, cast your eye over here to the inspector, this sprite has been rendered into the default sorting layer. Every sprite that you add to a game will go to default unless you set otherwise. So we're going to set something different now by clicking on the drop down of default and adding a sorting layer. We're going to put 3 layers in right now. One is called background. Then click the plus to add another one. Midground. And you're going to be absolutely shocked here when this one is called foreground. Perfect. You don't need to click save at this point. It's going to automatically save. We're simply going to go back to hierarchy. The game doesn't automatically save, just this section does. We're going to go back to hierarchy and click bird. Over to inspector, to the sorting layer. And we're going to set the bird to the foreground, off default to foreground. And there he is, he's back. So our bird is now sitting in front of everything else. We're going to click ground. Sorting layer. Set ground to foreground as well. Back to sky. Select sky and set sky to background. Midground will be used at a later point in the game when we add obstacles, which we want to sit in front of the background sky but behind the foreground bird and ground. So midground has not been used yet but is just set up for later. So bird is in foreground, has been renamed bird. Ground has been repositioned on the y-axis and has been placed in the foreground. And sky has been added in and set as our background. We have our scene set, but at this point, if I click play, it will turn blue when it's in action. Right, we're currently in play mode and nothing's happening. And the reason is all of these sprites have been added in, but no physics has been added. Anytime you click this play button to test your game, you must make sure that it turns off the blue before you continue editing. Any changes that you make while it's in play mode, while this is blue, will not be applied to the game once you click out of play mode, so you'll lose anything you do while it's in play mode. Only ever click this to test the game and then make sure you've clicked out of it to continue working. Okay, let's make our bird do something. So we're going to go to the bird, add a component, and we're going to add some physics 2-dimensional because we're in a 2D game. So let's start adding some real physics to this bird to make it in action with the game and have a little bit of movement. The first physics that we're going to give it is we're going to say that this bird is an object within the game that has a rigid body. click rigid body, and it adds a new component to the inspector. We're going to leave this as it is. However, this is part of the game that you can edit and change later on. So you can change the mass, you can change drag on the bird, angular drag, or gravity. Leave it as discrete collision, so always leave it there. And feel free to play around with this at any point. But what will happen now, when we click play, whoops, there he goes. He's got a rigid body, so because he's a real object, he falls off the screen. You can play with gravity quickly and have a look at what it does. So this will save because I turned the gameplay off. So I've changed the gravity to 10. Now I'm going to test that. Oh, fast gravity. Turn it back to 1. There we go. Ooh, not 11. Right. I'm going to minimize this so that the screen is easier to see. You can always pop this out again with the arrow, but if you find your screen getting a little bit crowded, feel free to minimize a few of the inspectors, and you can come back in and pop them out whenever you want to work on them. Okay, so the bird is falling away, but he's just disappearing from the screen. So let's add another component. It's also physics 2D, and we're going to scroll down to find the polygon collider. The polygon collider registers, click it, here it's come in. It registers a small green line around the outline of your sprite. So if you've made your own sprite that's a different shape to this bird, the polygon collider will register the outline of it and create a collider that just touches the edges. The collider does what it sounds like, it collides with an object. However, at the moment there's nothing in this game for it to collide with. So now that we've added this collider to the bird, logic dictates we must go to ground, add a component, physics 2D, and a really simple one for the ground is a box collider. And you'll see a little green line appear when the box collider is enacted. It's a bit too high in this game, really, isn't it? So what we'll do is we're going to just change its position using the y-axis, and we're going to drop it down. You see the green line moving until it's in line with, maybe not the grass, but just the bottom bit of the brown ground there. So it's about 2.69. Let's neaten that up, minus 2.7. That looks pretty good. You can change that to whatever you want. But let's try gameplay now that we've got a collider on the bird who has a rigid body and a collider on the ground. Oops. There we go. Oh, how exciting. Plop. Right. This is the starting point for your game. You now have a bird that is charged with physics that are making it respond to other items in the game, and you have a ground that won't let it fall off the screen, which would be not ideal. At this point we're going to save before we move on to the next step, which will be animating that bird to let you control it and get a few actions. We're going to go File, Save Project, and then because we're going to be extra careful and make sure we don't lose anything, we're also going to go File, Save Scenes. So we've saved that scene as well, and you can see there's a shortcut, Command S, but there's no shortcut for saving the project. So continuously save the scene. You can do that whenever you want to, just hit Command S, but at the end of every tutorial go through and save your project as well, just to be on the safe side, so that when we close this, to locate that project again for next time, click it, and then Flappy Bird SLN is your file that you will work into. Oh no, it's not. That's the code file. Gosh, sorry. Actually, to get it started, you just need to click Unity again. It will appear straight here on the disk, so it will take you straight to it. Ignore the last thing I said. So work is saved, we're ready, and we have our sprites sitting there. Come back for our next one and we'll go through adding a bit of code and animating the bird.